Welcome to the Next Pivot Point podcast. This season, I'm focused on sharing stories and ideas from experts on diversity and inclusion. In this episode, I will share some insights and ideas from Kasia Urbaniak, which I knew I was not going to say her name right. I'm going to get it right in her bio here in a minute. Together, we will leave you with some actionable tips to think about and discuss with your organization. We share this information because inclusive leadership is a journey. It requires bravery and courage, and you don't have to do it alone. At Next Pivot Point, I believe we are stronger together. We are one. So this expert this week, Kasia Urbaniak. I said it correctly. We made notes of pronunciation. Kasia Urbaniak. We're going to link to all of our information in the show notes as we always do. But before she jumps on here and forgives me for mispronouncing her name, I want to tell you a bit about why I'm so excited to have Kasia here with us today. So she is the founder and CEO of The Academy, a school that teaches women the foundations of power and influence. I love that P word, power. Kasia's perspective on power is unique. She spent decades working as one of the world's most successful dominatrixes while studying power dynamics with teachers all over the world. During that time, she practiced Taoist. I have got to learn more about this as well. Taoist alchemy in one of the oldest female-led monasteries in China, and obtained dozens of certifications in different disciplines, including medical, qigong, and systemic constellations. Woohoo! What an interesting background you're bringing with us, Kasia. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Yay! Okay, so let's dig in. So much ground to cover. I love this whole conversation. We're going to have women in power, a conversation we don't talk about a lot. Like you said, women's empowerment, we like to say, but not power, and how power can be with, not always power and or between genders. So I can't wait to get to that. Before that, tell us more about your background. What a varied set of experiences you have, and how has that led to your journey of managing the academy?
It began with a very simple problem I needed to solve, which is I didn't have money for school. And we live in the kind of world where pursuing something taboo like working as a dominatrix for a 19-year-old is actually, unfortunately, sometimes the most practical way to be able to get an education. It began as something that I did for money, but as I was studying to be a Taoist nun and was learning a lot about the energetics of the body language, the professional dungeon where I worked became a laboratory for understanding power dynamics between men and women in a way that was very precise, body-based, visceral. Like I didn't want to be faking it for money. I wanted to understand what it was that I was doing and the effect that it was having. So all of the other studies that I was engaged in ended up being tested in that space. So what does it mean to be in this, play acting scenario where I have a time limit, an hour usually, in which I'm supposed to be powerful and have power over someone, but because it's a consensual, agreed upon environment and I'm being paid, how do I make it real? How do I create this real experience? And in that journey, I started, especially being someone who's not a natural dominant, I started seeing all the places in which I was doing things that did not work. I was doing things that dropped the other person, disconnected from the other person. This person who's surrendering to my authority, and I'm not leaning into the authority in very, very, very subtle, but very profoundly, like ways that have a profound influence. So, this was sort of in the background for me because this was a secret. This was a secret job I had only a few people knew, and I had it for a very long time. So it was kind of in the background of everything else I was doing. And everything else I was doing, and the women that I was growing up with, from being a teenager to 20s to 30s, I saw these things that I had to overcome in that workspace, informed by studying all these incredible arts of body language, reading bodies, energetics, spiritual development. I saw them coming up against problems in their actual lives, everything from, the crazy texting of someone, a boss or a lover, interpreting, analyzing what their intentions are without making a direct ask, without asking, and all of the ways in which even bodily, like not taking up space, worrying about things that create static in communication. And so again, this was something that was sort of in the background. I considered it in a way to be my secret laboratory, but it grew in more and more importance and significance as I got older. Then there was a really pivotal moment where I considered my real job to be other things. I was doing other things. And I met my current business partner, a man who'd been working in war zones for a decade. And the first conversation we had lasted 6 months. I mean, we got into this conversation about power dynamics, because in working in Africa in war zones with people who didn't speak the same language, how do you establish authority to get your hospital built? He worked for Doctors Without Borders. How do you establish enough authority with human beings who don't recognize this piece of paper, none of whom speak the same language, where there's guns being pointed at you? How do you do all that? And it became, my experiences in the fringes of spirituality and sexuality, his experiences on the fringes of war and death, in a conversation about power, became incredibly connected and related. Oh, wow, these unspoken things that happen. So we started experimenting. And we brought couples and women, just invited people we knew to talk about their problems, watch how they communicate, look at their bodies, look at how they're responding and affecting to each other in these hidden, invisible ways. And this was really, a passionate experiment where we didn't have any intention of starting a school until those same people started talking to other people. And the overwhelming majority, being women, demanded a workshop. and we were in no way equipped to start a school, nor did we think that we were going in that direction. But the first, we opened up for a free Q&A at the house, like in an apartment. And we had a waiting list that made us do 5 of them. And then we announced a class, and it was an 8-month waiting list. Yeah. And it was sort of the world being like, hey, there's a need here, and you're uniquely shaped to address it in this particular way.
Well, sometimes
Are you going on this ride or not? So
listening
7 years
to the
later,
energy, right? You may not have thought that was the path forward, but the energy it produced, people were asking you. I say, if the same people are asking you the same question like 3 different times, like there's probably something there. In your case, it was 5-fold. Such an interesting story about power in your own personal real life learning experience in that environment. So you have a book coming out about power. So tell our listeners about Unbound, A Woman's Guide to Power.
So Unbound is part training manual for battle, loving battle, and part manifesto. It has concrete exercises and guides the reader through a journey of breaking good girl conditioning. So in retrospect, those women who asked for a workshop, we didn't have words for it at the time, but it became very clear that they were sick and tired of being good girls. And I don't mean being good women, good human beings, but this conditioning that it inspires this set of behavior that doesn't actually have a good result for anyone involved. People aren't called out. Women are under-resourced, under-loved, under-nurtured. They're doing everything alone, working, doing 10 people's jobs, not getting acknowledged for it. You name it, sick and tired. And this idea is now more popular in our culture than it was 7 years ago, that like good girls got to go. And I see these like moments of euphoria. I've had it. I'm not going to be a good girl anymore. I'm going to be truthful, loving, fierce. I'm going to be out there with my desires. I'm done. The issue is that euphoria lasts for 2 hours to 2 weeks before this, these micro habits, this insidious conditioning starts creeping in. So it actually takes behavioral, action, exercises, awareness of things that aren't talked about in our culture, of like how we accidentally compromise ourselves in our position. And we were also operating from a place of, this was way before Me Too. So, women's power in the world was less of a conversation, less of an open conversation. And so the premise was, we're not going to wait for the world to be diversely inclusive, and we're not going to wait for sexism to be over. We're going to give women tools now to deal with the world as it is, so that they can have that not just share of the pie, but be creating it and be acknowledged for the world they want to live in, the world they want to create. Small personal world, big world at large. And it's the reason I get up in the morning every day and go, this is going to be a good day, no matter how hard or crazy it is, or how, who knows what's going to happen, but at least I know I'm here.
Well, how do you help people understand their sources of power? Because like you said, women's empowerment. Gosh, I even use that hashtag cringing on social media about women's empowerment, but we don't talk about women having power. How do you teach people to cultivate their power?
Because being at least in my estimation, being a powerful woman, having personal sovereignty, making choices based on what feels right, what sources self and other. Being powerful is actually the natural state. So it has a lot to do with removing the things that get in the way. And the most insidious kind of prison bars are the ones you don't see. The most insidious kinds of prison bars are the ones that are now reinforced by you without your own knowledge. So women don't need to be policed, because a lot of that policing is now self-policing, internalized. You can even hear it in the internal mental chatter. So, there are things to call attention to that are pretty concrete.
Yeah.
Right? Like, in the academy, we have our students log very meticulously the invisible labor they do, mental, emotional, physical, and then go, do I like doing this? What benefit am I doing other people's work for them without being acknowledged? Do I want to be acknowledged? Do I want to be paid? Am I happy with this invisible labor as a gift to the universe, and I can pour my heart into it and know that I'm doing it? Is it something that would actually be beneficial for someone else to pick up and do? Right? And those choices, with awareness comes everything. Another thing is the unnecessary sacrifices, the places we go, I don't really need this, when really it could be something that sources us. Oh, this is frivolous or selfish. Actually, maybe this elaborate morning time bath ritual is exactly the thing that's going to make me a kick-ass leader all day. Another, and probably one of the biggest things, has to do with asking. Women really tend to, at least from my experience, not ask for what they need, what they want, what would make them operate better, what would make and sometimes the most outrageous ask is one that generates not only a huge shift in relationships, a huge shift in environment, but sometimes asking more of the people around you changes their role, makes them feel like they are more exalted, more powerful, like they can contribute, more meaningful, more useful. And this idea that by not asking, we're actually doing someone a favor, turns out to be experientially, in my experience, absolutely untrue. We don't ask enough of our partners. We don't ask enough of our workplaces. We don't ask enough. And the issue with the asking thing is that oftentimes the extent to which we are afraid to ask, afraid to hear no, afraid to be bossy or needy, the extent to which we inhibit speaking our desires or vision in the form of a request, a command, an invitation, the percentage of those that are stifled in us, by us unconsciously, is overwhelmingly huge and underestimated. We don't even know the things we're not asking for. Sometimes you ask for a lot more, and the dinner date, the work project actually reaches its peak vision. It's been more inspiring for everyone to work on, more inspiring for everyone to participate in. And so it has so much to do with not just pointing out the habits, the qualities of good girl conditioning, meaning being accommodating, being moderate in appetite, both sexual and food-wise, being low maintenance, which is, there's no woman on the planet that's low maintenance. There's no human that's low maintenance. Oh no, I'm fine, I'm good, I don't need that. Being incredibly resourceful, making do with what you have, responding in a timely fashion, meeting unspoken obligations. All that stuff that would make a woman 100 years ago a wonderful candidate for marriage. You know, she's no trouble. She creates a lot of harmony, does a lot of work behind the scenes. She's a great woman behind the great man, all that stuff actually ends up resulting in really concrete behavior patterns.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
How many women will want something, be offered it, and automatically say no before they even have time to think about it?
I'm
Or see a
okay.
card, yeah, I'm fine.
That's what we're taught from a young
Yeah,
age. Please
yeah,
others. Yes.
yes,
Take care of
yes.
others. These messages we teach girls, there's so many adjectives that are flawed that we use to describe girls, not boys. I want to go back to a word you shared earlier, Kasia, the word insidious. And part of this is so serendipitous because I just led a racial conversation with a group of white people. And we were talking about systems of inequality, redlining, all sorts of stuff that affects more of the racial community. And someone used the word insidious. Why is it so insidious? And my question to them was, what does insidious mean to you? Because I honestly didn't know I hadn't thought about that word in this context. And so when you said it, I was like, you got to be kidding me. I just heard that word twice in one day. There's got to be something going on. Well, instantly, when you talked about how it's hard to see, I thought of the feminist work that I read early in my women's studies curriculum back at Ohio State. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, right? So it's when you're in the cage, you can't really see. You have to take a step back to see that you're in a cage, but a lot of times we're seeing through these bars. So the insidious bars affecting women. I know you and I both focus a lot on gender, and why is it hard to see these things? Like, what are the things that are hard to see, and why is it hard to see them?
There are stages in waking up. There are stages. This applies to race, it applies to gender, it applies to economic injustice. It even applies to our own emotions. You can identify 3 stages. For example, think about anger for a second. I've become an expert in spotting repressed and hidden anger in a woman who's smiling, shiny-eyed, and insists that anger is not really her thing. She's more sad sometimes or frustrated and, has shiny eyes and goes, no, it's all good. It's great. There's the stages are the stage where you don't know it exists. It's like a limb that's fallen asleep. And that stage is the one where the hidden, unspoken thing, culturally or personally, is having an effect, but nobody knows it's having an effect. We don't have words for it yet. Getting words for it is really, really, really important. When you get words for something like anger or a particular kind of injustice, the second stage enters, the painful pins and needles phase of your waking up. It's when rage is at its worst, and we normally stop there. We go, oh, I'm angry, it's destructive and reckless. And everything, when this emerging awareness begins to arise, whether it's related to gender, race, or personally, emotion, to stop at that phase where it's like, this is destructive, chaotic, messy, this is going to destroy all my relationships. I want to shut that back down. It's like the Pandora's box story. People forget that Pandora's box, the reason it's a problem is that right before hope comes out, the door gets shut. The third phase of an emerging awareness is one where the pins and needles have gone. You understand not just what you were fighting against with your anger, what the problem is, but you see the vision you're fighting for, not the thing you're fighting against. In that third stage, you can walk with, you're not going to fall over if you walk on your numb leg, because now it's awake, there's full circulation. And we very often in this culture get so freaked out by discomfort, the pins and needles. People shut down. Black Lives Matter talking about race, shutting down, shut that down. It hurts. I'm not a bad person because I'm white. All these things, like this chaotic middle phase is so critical and important. Being able to make it through to the third phase is critical. So there are still so many things when it comes to gender. We've made so much progress over the years as women, right? And yet we are still at a point where there's so many things that are still in that first phase. They're hidden. And so bringing those into awareness creates a temporary chaos. And this was witnessed in some of the more, I would say, destructive aspects of the Me Too movement. But it's natural. And now it's like, let's get to the third phase with some of these issues. So, in really, some of these things when it comes to women are insidious in the sense that You may not notice how many times you apologize or walk into a room like you're apologizing, or uh, bracket what you're saying, or um, allow someone to make an assumption and not correct it, or ask you an uncomfortable question and answer even though you don't have to. They have no right to ask, and you don't want to, but find yourself explaining yourself, justifying yourself. Now, because there are 10,000 little behaviors of good girl conditioning, to try to modify every single one of them ends up creating a really self-conscious, destructive, vigilant self-awareness. We don't want that. We don't want a manual that gives you 101 things not to do. It's much more powerful to do 5 things, one at a time, that automatically break those things. So explore asking, practice hearing no, log your invisible labor, make choices about what you're going to do, learn the steps of having difficult conversations about the sacrifices you're not going to make anymore. And in a powerful, and here's a key word, playful way.
Yeah. Have fun with it. This doesn't have to be so serious.
Oh, being a quote unquote bad girl is tremendous fun.
Oh, yeah. Sign me up. No, this is interesting, Kasha, because you really have to be strategic. I don't know how many times I do women's workshops and they're like, just give me the things to do. Just tell me the top 10 list. Like, I can tell you, yeah, did not use qualifiers in your language. Yeah, to say no more. I just made a list earlier today for workshop grudgingly. But I love how you're peeling back the onion and making more strategic choices, right? And thinking about those invisible factors and your invisible labor and your sources of power and asking for it. And this chaos that happens temporarily is part of the journey. We did not get here overnight. We're not going to undo this overnight. It's going to take time, and you got to think bigger and bolder than just little baby steps. So I love all these tips. I'm curious, what role do you think men have in this conversation about women? I talk a lot about men as allies. So I'm curious, how can men help with this good girl conditioning and truly share power with women?
You know, the truth is that, and this is maybe a controversial opinion, but the people who are in a position to give power up, as though it's a limited resource, right? Which is a lie to begin with. But let's just look at the psychological construct. The issue is they can't fully know what our experience is. And it's very easy to say, well, they should share power. They should know better. The issue is, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, they don't. Human beings do what works. Good girl conditioning exists because it worked for a really long time, for millennia. It's just not working now. That's why we need to update it. So the person who's suffering, or the group that's suffering, it's a controversial thing to say that it's kind of on you to inform others. Not because, oh, great, we have more work to do now, but because we're the ones carrying the information about what's not working for us. Now, people ask me all the time, when are you going to teach men? And oftentimes those people who are people who haven't been at the academy for long enough or at all, because the truth is, I train women to train men. These tools, right? When a woman gets into the habit of asking for her highest vision, even in the smallest scenario, her highest vision of dinner, her highest vision of what a meeting could be, to big things, her highest vision of where to live, how much money to make, how she wants to be treated, small things, big things, how she wants the family to run, all of those things. When she gets into the habit of asking for the highest vision, there's going to be knee-jerk reactions. There's going to be some pushback. Navigating those, the pushback, right, is not only where the training happens, is where the intimacy and collaboration happens. When somebody is resisting you initially, if you can get with the fact that people don't say no or resist things generally just to be jerks, they do it because they're trying to protect something. And helping them become aware of what it is they're trying to protect, and even validating it, even if it's something like vanity, they're afraid of being humiliated, they want to maintain the status quo because it makes them feel safe. If you can sit with their no or their resistance long enough to find out what it is that they're trying to protect, the second conversation after resistance or after no is 1,000 times better than the first conversation where you make an outrageous ask. It's where all of the inventiveness, the collaboration, the genius, the stronger relationship, again, whether it's professional, romantic, or familial, that's where those things are born. It's after the fire. It's after that second stage.
The chaos. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And being afraid, because good girl conditioning tells us not to be messy, not to be emotional, not to be reckless, not to create
Don't be too
feathers.
much.
Don't be too much. The thing is, too much is oftentimes not enough yet. Right? You go all the way through and something totally new, and the landscape changes. It doesn't become about what I want versus what you want. It becomes what's the thing that is even better than what both of us want. That meets
Pie gets bigger together. And that's what I talk about with allyship with men. And you're right. I mean, the onus is on women. We're the ones being affected by it, to educate men. And it's exhausting. I know.
You know, it's another way of looking at this that actually is more empowering. Empowering. More motivating and inspiring is that, okay, this is a blanket statement, right? It's just a generalization. But in general, especially in heteronormative, heterosexual relationships, what happens is over time, women get angrier and angrier and men get dumber and dumber. And the men that I've come across and the around the school and in my life, what I see over and over and over again is they want to get it right.
Yeah. They want to be a good guy.
They want to be better than a good guy. They want to be the knight in shining armor. They want, and
also not helpful.
No, yes, it is. Yes, it is. No, I have no problem with men who want to do everything wonderfully, exaltedly well. The issue is that men will habitually shut down when they're in no-win situations. And good girl conditioning is the recipe for that. Don't give them a job big enough, awesome enough. Don't ask enough. After a while, they're like, I can't win. I'm damned if I do. I'm damned if I don't. I'm supposed to guess. I can't read minds. I don't understand.
Yeah.
My masculine conditioning has made me into a monster now. Like nobody's
toxic masculinity.
Yes. And the thing is that, as you know, it's, I'm not, you know, it's difficult to, you know, really accept that as people do what works and behavior that was exalted is now becoming seen as toxic, the behavioral adjustment that needs to happen on the side of men, there is some more information, support, and guidance that they need, and so many are dying for it. They cannot wait.
They don't want to be in this man box either. Like the good guy conditioning and the good girl conditioning isn't good for either gender, right? It would be so much better outside of these boxes to just
I would be talking about good girl conditioning and big man conditioning.
There you go, big man.
If I were a hermaphrodite, you know, I don't know enough about the men's experience from the inside to be able to say, oh, because in the academy, we make sure that everything that we teach is based on something that you can experience in the body. Like it's a real felt experience, not a conceptual theory. Right. Oh, look what happens here in this moment to the body. Look, so I don't have a man's body. I don't know what it's like to walk through the world, especially as a heterosexual white man. That, you know, everyone's assuming.
It would be an interesting exercise for a day, wouldn't it?
It would be amazing. It would be amazing.
Maybe just for a day.
We do an exercise like that in the school, but I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this podcast.
That's totally fine, Kasia.
Yeah, we do a game that's called If I Had a Dick.
Oh, nice. Yeah, what would that be like? I think we can just imagine how that activity plays out. This has been so fun, Kasia, to be with you. Obviously, we could talk for hours, and we got to do a part 2 after the book comes out this fall to talk about all the great things you're continuing to see and speak about. But for now, so long. Let our listeners know, how can they follow you? How can they engage with your work further?
I encourage everyone to check out weteachpower.com.
Okay.
Because on there we have so many different tools and resources that a woman can use without ever taking a class. Also information about classes and the book and events that we're having are on there as well. And that's really the best place to go for everything. Awesome. And then when Unbound, A Woman's Guide to Power comes out November 17th, I encourage every woman to get herself a copy and take that little manual out into the world and get your desires met, create the world you want, because we need powerful women in this world now.
Yeah, we do. I love using the word power more with women. That's my personal takeaway from this episode, and less of the empowerment piece, which is just so much more fun to talk about
Right?
women's
It just
power.
implies that you can get empowered by yourself.
Exactly. I had it all along. Awesome, Kasha. Well, thanks for being with us today. It's been such a treat to have you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode. Who do you know that needs to hear this message? Hit the share button. And also, you can connect with us on LinkedIn. Simply search Julie Kratz, Kratz. Anywhere you have podcast episodes, you can share this episode, and every review helps others, allies find us. I host this podcast because we're stronger together. We are one.